In this video, I am going to answer the 3 biggest questions that people ask about AI. And I'm going to bring in some of the sharpest minds from the baseline discussions. We have hit 500,000 views and 500 subscribers, so thank you very much. Everything is an organic, developmental situation around AI at the moment. There's just so much noise, hype, money, people.
We're at that, definitely at that phase where there's a lot of businesses where they've, as you say, they put a wrapper around ChatGPT and they have no moat, they have no defensibility.
I believe the rise of AI is unstoppable, and Baseline is here to record and journal that through the eyes and the voices of the people at the front line. It's very exciting to be part of it. And my own knowledge has just come so far in the last few months. Question 1 is, will AI take our jobs? That is a really difficult question to answer. The answer is, of course, yes. Yes, it will take millions of jobs. It already is taking millions of jobs.
Apparently, 25% of entrepreneurs in the UK are disabled, so it's a high fraction. And of course, when you're working for yourself, most entrepreneurs are working for themselves. Maybe they've got a handful of staff. It's challenging enough.
So they're saving typically 8 hours a week in productivity time. They are improving the quality of their conversations because they're not scribbling in a notebook. They are focused on the person with them. And then because of that, they're like more engaged at work. They're not having to work crazy overtime. They are not kind of feeling like drowned in admin. And so they're starting to have a bit more time to do the parts of their practice that actually add more value.
What I like to use is kind of tractors. So right, farming existed before the technology of tractors existed. And all tractors enabled were farmers to be able to tend to the same amount of land in less time, or for the same farmer to be able to tend to a larger area of land. So you can kind of take that concept and then apply it to LLMs. So at the moment, a single developer can build a piece of software that is a certain size independently, or a team of engineers can build a piece of software up to a certain size. What LLMs enable at the moment is that same team of engineers or individual engineer to develop a bigger piece of software, or for a bigger piece of software to be developed by a smaller team.
I don't think there's going to be mass unemployment. There's just a huge reassignment.
Then actually, do I need someone with 20 years logistics experience to do that job anymore? Do I need someone with, dare I say it, a master's degree or a PhD to do that job anymore? Potentially, I can have someone coming in, lift, shift, and drop into a role. They do this role. They have a screen that tells them, when you see this kind of situation, this is what you should do.
The speed in which it's happening, I have not seen in my career. But then when you look back at history, the horse era was brought to an end over a period of 20 years, and that was an era that lasted many thousands of years. I feel as though if we look at the internet era, it's been around, let's say 30 years, pre-2000. It was very early stage. E-commerce kind of happened within the, that whole post-Y2K .com bubble. The reality of the AI shift is happening exponentially because it just seems to have hit or been created by a whole set of socio-economic factors. We had the end of zero interest rate era when money was really cheap. We had COVID. Obviously in Europe we had Brexit. There were a whole set of conditions that caused a lot of trouble for business. That disruption and fragmentation of the workforce, increasing digital engagement with teams and people, that digitization of the very human has kind of created this shim, this opportunity for digital avatars and digital instances and content creation to happen. You're no longer in person, so you have time and process and technology to build content asymmetrically.
I'm just going to have a ChatGPT, but on our documents. It's going to be like ChatGPT, but on our docs. But of course, what's the reality of that? Well, actually, most enterprises have got a ton of unstructured data, let's call them documents for now, of varying degrees of credibility, but the AI doesn't understand the different credibility statuses of each of these documents.
Some people are panicking. I think everybody's panicking a little bit, especially when they see the technology and they're blown away mainly by its ability to replicate humanity and deceive you into thinking it's human. The latest VO3 video generators, Mid-Journey version 7 with custom profiling based on what you like, has the ability to create images that are better than photographs. The reality is we need to get through the stages of grief. Like a whole era of the way we work, the way we interact, the way we integrate, it's done. And the stages of denial through to acceptance, we need to move through that really quickly. And we need to get to this acceptance point where we're coexisting with digital superintelligence. Like, that's the reality. In a short amount of time since 2018, the large language model has gone from quite a clunky component to something that can beat the Turing test at 80% of the time, right? So imagine in 3 years, we've just got to accept that we have a universally accessible superintelligence that coexists within humanity. And I think that the whole denial and resistance and pleading, we need to get through that, move to acceptance, and then work at how we use our energy to design and rebuild the systems for humanity to coexist with that system. Question 2, how close are we to AGI?
I mean, we've had natural language processing in forms for decades, but the quality of a Gen AI, a large language model, in terms of how it responds and generates an answer with language that we immediately relate to, and we are very good at anthropomorphizing things, whether it's kittens or monkeys or
Humanizing
whatever.
things.
Humanizing things that aren't human. And if we've got a linguistic response from a system that is good enough, whether it's typed or whether it's spoken, if it's done in a way that sounds human to us, then we immediately infuse that with it's got intelligence. And then,
the ability to use language is almost like a handshake in a relationship that is setting out a bilateral perception of intellectual capability.
Kind of quoting another YouTuber here, he said it's like having Einstein in your basement, and being able to ask him anything whenever you want, as many times as you want. And I think it's really good because with what I'm doing, AI is not just used to like code, right? It's used to learn.
Right. Artificial general intelligence is a term that has been brought around from the idea of AI being far more intelligent and capable than human beings. And, there was a comment saying the average human is no more intelligent than an abacus. There's a key thing about AGI. And I kind of stumbled this in the early conversations on Baseline. And it was about whether intelligence and our ability to articulate are two separate things. And it's led me on this path to actually learn about the linguistic turn and how philosophers started to perceive not only reality, but how we talk about reality almost more important than actual reality. So if you think about intelligence and then the way we articulate intelligence, which one's actually more important? Because intelligence could be locked in a human that's unable to articulate it, and therefore that person will be hugely underestimated and undervalued. Whereas the ability to articulate in a very insightful and compelling way may create the perception of a greater intelligence than actual IQ. It's a very fuzzy term, because I believe even today we have digital systems based on the large language models that will portray great intellect. It has the knowledge. We know it's got the knowledge. It's got all of the words. It's got all of the data. It's been trained on all of the information. So the knowledge is there. The emotional inflection is being built in based on a huge amount of test data and reinforcement learning. And just the nuanced capability to build language from hyper-contextual situations is so compelling. And whether a machine's never going to feel real emotion, but can it portray it feels real emotion? I would say yes. So how close are we to AGI? I don't think there's going to be a point where a computer gets switched on and AGI is here. I think AGI is going to fuzzily appear incrementally, I would say, over the next 3 years. Question 3, every baseline finishes with it. Every baseline will always finish with it. Will AI lead us to a utopia or dystopia?
In a sense, it doesn't care about the collection of pixels that happen to be other people in that image. It's just looking for that particular collection of pixels that is the thing that I've asked it to look for. And that's where it starts to get difficult, because the technology itself, it doesn't have an opinion. It's following instructions. But who gives the instructions is the challenging part of it.
So the question I think that we face is, how are we going to use this engine? Are we going to put it into a car that allows us to see friends and relatives in less than no time, as opposed to getting on the back of a horse and riding through the countryside? Are we going to put it into a tank that will create huge amounts of destruction? For me, the issue is, how are we using this engine?
The true outcome depends on who builds the systems and who owns the systems and who funds them. It's the silent systems. It's the systems that are building into government and business, the ones that are shaping decisions that we don't understand. One of the big fears for me is that as we start to give accountability, not shared accountability, but actual accountability to these black box systems, and they start to evolve themselves and they start to train themselves, is when does that point occur where we actually lose understanding of what they are? That'll be a very interesting point when we pass that, when effectively those systems are allowed to train and learn themselves. But here's the twist. On baseline itself, every discussion, it's all feeding a bigger system. So we're not just talking about the future. We're not just documenting or journaling. We're training it. By taking our thoughts and ideas and our discussions and our dialogue and turning it into digital discourse, we're manifesting our own destiny with our very words, with our very conversations. More of the stories behind the headlines. So if you're new here and you've got this far in the video, thank you so much. I'll see you on the next video.
I hope that Europe, being less on the corporate side, or political side anyway, but more driven by ethical and human ideas. I think that for AI, Europe could be a utopian place to be.